Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. We're going to review 1917, the one-take war film, as you may have heard, directed by Sam Mendes. The movie's about two soldiers who are tasked with a mission to deliver a message to call off an attack. They have to get this message there or else thousands of people will die. It's not the first movie of its kind, obviously. Birdman did this. Victoria did this.
Probably the best one-take film I have seen. I liked it even more than Birdman. I highly recommend that. And also one authentic take. People need to see that movie. I mean, that was a stunning one-take movie. It's also just a great film.
You know, when we look at like what kind of war film is this, it's, you know, an action thriller war film. And yes, it has moments where there's heart, but it's not like one of those sort of war films that's going to like dissect the nature of war and the human condition. It's not one of those.
If on one side Black Hawk Down, one side Come and See, this movie's somewhere in the middle, but I think it leans towards the Black Hawk Down side. Like, it goes for those moments where they try to like inject that sentimentality and that like innocence of war kind of stuff into it, but overall it's less like horrors of war movie than thriller, tense movie, just like more like Dunkirk. Very celebratory of its heroes.
This movie had some great highs. There are some scenes that were like really like the way they utilized the one take and the cinematography was just amazing. There are other scenes where it didn't feel like it was utilizing like the max potential of itself. It didn't feel like a non-stop thrill ride like Dunkirk or something. And that's not to say that I didn't appreciate the moments where it simmered down, but it's like the in-between where it's not totally thrilling and it's not more character building. There's a lot in the middle that's like less appealing, but still, like, this was quite an experience. And, you know, aside from the cinematography, as we all know, is Roger Deakins is likely winning a second Oscar for this movie, and that's no surprise. The production design is also maybe equally impressive. I just thought it was fascinating how these, you know, as you were saying, these sets are like miles long, and there's so much like texture and grit in there. You could overlook the fact that they sculpted like the ground to be muddy and lumpy or whatever.
Those craters from all the bodies, like all these things that you see for a split second. What this film does interesting is there's a lot of like peripheral shit going on, and that's what makes this film like unique. That's like really some of the best moments is just when you can absorb the mise en scène, as they like to say. You see like people getting haircuts, you see the way that like they're just kind of bored or they sit around. Those details felt like really important to this film, like in terms of being immersive. What the movie does well is that it's immersive. I think it kind of needs those moments where things slow down and you're just walking. Like, they embrace the scenes where they have to just make a long journey across a muddy field. And I found those to be like pretty thrilling. I actually think some of the best moments in the movie is just when they are like traversing and you just kind of get like a sense for the atmosphere, the texture, like what it's like to go through the mud. And that part like felt more immersive to me because you're just walking. Like, I don't know what it is. On one hand, there's like this realism and this naturalism to the movie, but on the other, some of the things just felt like more contrived. It like brought me out of the movie a little bit. Some of the dialogue being like people ordering him to do things was like, you must be hungry. Like, go feed yourself now. Oh, Colonel, it is you. And then other than that, there was just some things here and there that felt like, yeah, like that's supposed to be in this war film. Like, he comes across a guy who's like, he's like, where is the Colonel? And he's like, I was like, like, you know what I mean?
There's, of course, that scene, as in any war movie, where the character runs into like a woman who doesn't speak the same language and they bond even though they can't speak the same language.
A sweet woman.
You know, this happened in the movie Fury. I liked the moment, but it also was like, this is like what we get in a war movie.
Yeah. There was nothing like beneath the surface that was like driving like why we need this war story. You know, what this movie's really about. Some movies like Hacksaw Ridge are going to embrace like heroism as the theme. Other films like Come and See will embrace like the horrors of wars. I kind of wish there was a different angle other than like just pure thriller. Kind of like a mesh pot of the themes that we've seen in war films before. It's not going to do anything different story-wise, right? I mean,
you might argue that there's no separating the method from the work of art as a whole, but you get the sense that if this movie didn't have the one take, it like the story itself is not that interesting, but obviously the point of the movie is that it's told in one take. It didn't feel like it used the one take to like integrate it and make the story really interesting because of the one take. I mean, I will say it was definitely immersive with the cinematography and the production design style. Like, it's really cool to see like the camera traveling for such a long distance and a long period of time. It's something you don't get from other movies. So for that reason, it's obviously like a strong recommendation. You know, what about the score, Justin? You know, Thomas Newman's probably going to win his first Oscar for this, but we both seem to agree that it's not his best score, and that's not a bad thing, obviously. Like, he's a great composer.
American Beauty, I think, is like his best score. I think that's a phenomenal score. This one, you know, it doesn't build like any memorable themes necessarily. I keep going back to that. I don't think music nowadays, like, they kind of got rid of the theme, which I think is disappointing. There are scenes when the score like really works and is doing like really well, and other times where it feels like, okay, like this is kind of what it's supposed to be. You know, it's not radical, but Thomas Newman, like, he's been nominated so many times. I mean, he just deserves an Oscar. They should have given it to him for American Beauty. Not sure why he didn't win for that year.
And I will say Finding Nemo's score is like also really excellent. I liked that more than the score for this movie. I mean,
and there's that one scene though where it's like very powerful.
Yeah, the one where he's walking into the fire ruins.
Yeah. So I think it's big enough it could win. It has those moments, and it's like, oh, it's his year. It doesn't need to be his best score ever.
The score often embraces the action movie feel. It doesn't.
It's gonna go like like it's gonna do all that you expect.
You know, in terms of intense action movies or thrillers or war movies, it's not the most intense. There are a couple moments that are up there, but
there are moments that are like up there. I agree. The tripwire scene was like definitely up there. We both think. I mean, it definitely had thrills. Like, the movie is a thrill ride, I think, and it did it really well. Like, that is what I think the movie succeeds on. Yeah, and just like the whole like world it creates, the immersion factor. Like, I think that's why I really enjoyed this movie. You know, I would give this movie an 8 out of 10.
You're not gonna come away like The Hurt Locker and be like, oh my god, the human condition of war. I would give this film an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I wished it was like better in some ways, but what we got was like really well-crafted experience. It was very unique. You know, some people are gonna go to this movie, they're gonna be like, oh my god, it's in one take. Oh my god, it's in one take. And they're just gonna like love it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that might be you. It might not be you.
You know, just enjoy it for the ride, but I wouldn't expect too much more. Also, this movie, he gets shot at an unfathomable amount of times by people who are just like completely incompetent apparently at firing guns. When he is running straight away from them and they are like down a hallway where they could just shoot him. Interesting movie I think should be made. I think Bellatar should remake this movie. Do a one take and just make it fucking grisly.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you had one day to deliver this message to save your brother, would you deliver it?